Thanksgiving. You have to defrost? Who knew? Dear family, well, Christmas draws near. We have a field exercise all next week, then we go to a half-day schedule through New Year's Day. I am considering getting a job to earn a little extra money over Christmas. I am getting a little excited about coming home in March. We have a major inspection in mid-March, and I'm going to try and get out of it. If not, maybe March 16th, I will be able to come home. Welcome back, Michelle. I wanted to write you, but I ran out of your address labels and I keep forgetting to find your address. We are planning a big Christmas dinner at my friend Mac's house. This time we are going to cook turkey. I will probably spend time one of these days in my room unwrapping the presents you sent. I will be thinking of you all and the wrapping paper all over the floor. I am having trouble finding time to write Christmas cards, which is a very time-consuming operation. Your package is on its way. $10 was kind of expensive. There should be 4 presents for the whole family. As usual, I have no idea what people want. I tried my best. The rest of the box can be taped up and placed in my closet. I will deal with it later. I have been trying to consider a way to bring my motorcycle out here. I'm just not sure how, but I plan on doing that when I'm on my leave. Any thoughts? Well, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Love, Mike. Spending time at Mac's on weekends was a wonderful break from the barracks and all the craziness. For Thanksgiving, we had all planned to do dinner for all our friends. We bought all the supplies, and I was getting ready to cook. I called my mom to get some last-minute instructions. She asked how long I had defrosted the turkey for. Defrosted? I replied, unclear of what she meant. I figured we would just stick it in the oven. Nope, I needed to defrost it for 3 days first. Well, shit. Damn, our plans were blown. We still made mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie, but it was a little depressing to end the holidays. However, we planned a bigger adventure for Christmas, and this time I remembered to defrost the turkey first. Here I am with my cooked turkey, yes. Vodka. Oh, no, definitely not again. I remember once at Mac's house, for some reason, everyone left except this girl and me. I think it was over Christmas break when we were only working park days. Now, she was one of my buddy's girlfriends, but she was much too flirty with all the rest of us. Anyway, she decided to get out some vodka for shots. Hey, it's hard to say no to a woman, especially when she challenges you at drinking. Well, after many shots, I still don't remember how many, everyone came back and I was super drunk. I made it to the toilet, crawling all the way to throw up. I remember hearing laughter as I was in my drunken stupor, but I slept through most of it. In the morning, someone was headed back to the barracks early, so I hopped a ride. Weird, though, as I had this red stuff on my fingernails. I tried washing them a few times to no avail. Then I realized what had happened. The girl had put fingernail polish on my fingernails when I was passed out. Luckily, I had her number and gave her a call. She brought the remover over and I was able to take the polish off. My buddy sure got me that time, and no more vodka for me. That was the first and only time I was so drunk that I passed out. However, the good news is, if there was any, was that I was so drunk, I don't even remember throwing up. Alert! Shit! Is this the real thing? Early one morning, I heard the knocks on each door in the barracks in succession. They were coming close to my room. I just decided to get up and get ready. We were going on alert. We had done this before, but this one seemed more serious, like it wasn't a drill. We headed over to the motor pool to meet the rest of the team. We sat in the motor pool playing spades and waited. As always, there were lots of rumors running around, but it turned out this one was real. It was going to be a trip to Panama. Historic note: General Noriega from Panama used to be an ally with the United States and work with the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, but was now our enemy. There were drug trafficking charges brought up against him, but the U.S. couldn't extradite him for trial. Well, Noriega had decided that he didn't like the elections in Panama that had taken place back in May of 1989, so he took control of the country. Two coups were attempted to stop him, but they had failed. So President Bush, the first one, decided he would not negotiate with Noriega. On December 15th, General Noriega declared war against America. The next day, he stopped a U.S. military vehicle and accused the soldiers of spying. The soldiers fled, but one was shot and killed. With over 35,000 Americans living in Panama, the tensions were rising too much, and President Bush ordered the Panama invasion for December 20th. I learned all the historical background on the situation later. I mean, I was not a history buff, and geography was not my best subject, so I was sort of clueless when it came to all of this. But my buddies told me more, and I was starting to get a little nervous. But I was ready to serve my country if needed. It was nearing lunchtime, and we were getting the MREs out, so because we were still on lockdown, when Sergeant Watson called me over and told me to sign out a Humvee. We were headed over to Company B of the 226 ADA. This unit had its own motor pool, but they needed the sergeant and I to do all the dispatching. While I did make sure that we filled out the paperwork correctly, I wasn't overly critical of their paperwork, as I usually was with my unit soldiers. These soldiers were going to war. Operation Just Cause. After dispatching all the vehicles, we wished the soldiers luck on their journey. With over 27,000 troops from dozens of different units, the main operation to take down Noriega was over in a few hours, and Guillermo Herrera was sworn in as leader of Panama, based on the elections from earlier in the year. It took some time to capture Noriega, but they finally got him in early January, and now he is serving time in prison. More than 1,000 Panamanians lost their lives, and almost 30 soldiers died, mostly from friendly fire. A successful win for the U.S. However, many people from Panama are still mad at how it was handled. We didn't lose any soldiers in our unit, and they came back with amazing stories of using the Vulcan guns on fleeing military boats. I returned back to the motor pool, and by evening chow, we were released. I guess they decided they only needed the fighting units this time, not the headquarters battery team. I was ready to go, but happy when I hadn't gotten the call this time. The almost hookup, or be careful what you wish for. It was New Year's Eve in 1989. In 1990, I would be getting out and heading home unless I re-enlisted. But for this night, it was my turn to be designated driver. That was okay. Late in 1989, Mac and a few others from the motor pool had started hanging out with me a lot. We had found another dive bar in Monterey on one of the busier streets around the bay. It was just a tiny place with a long bar in one room and then another small room with 3 pool tables. Man, did I love playing pool. It was fun to just play pool, drink beer, and talk about shit with the guys. This was a bar with very few women. It was mostly about getting drunk and usually an older clientele. There was a female bartender, though, Suzanne. Mac had struck up a pretty good relationship with her, and we usually could get some decent discounts on drinks from her as long as we tipped well. I liked her as a person, but wasn't really attracted to her, even when I was tipsy. But tonight was just about shooting the shit with the guys. I sort of wanted to go home early because we had been out the last few nights while on Christmas vacation, and I was feeling a little down with no girlfriend, but I was there for my buddies to get them home safely. I had come to the bar one more time to fill up my soda, and then I was hit by confetti in my hair. What the hell? I turned around, and an innocent-looking woman stood before me. "Sorry, Happy New Year," she said. She was almost as tall as me, with long curly brown hair. She was sort of attractive, but there was something about her that sent shivers down my spine. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't pinpoint it. She sat at the bar next to me, and we talked. She told me about how her boyfriend had dumped her on New Year's Eve, and she was just looking for some fun. We chatted a little longer, and then she suggested we leave and go to her place, which was right around the corner. Wow, this girl was a little forward for me. The problem was I couldn't leave. I was the designated driver, but also there was just something strange about her. I just couldn't figure it out. We talked a little longer, and I thanked her for the offer, but I was going to stay. I headed into the pool area, but watched her from a distance. She tried talking to someone else, but was mostly alone. I chatted with my friends for a minute or two, then looked over, but she was gone. I wondered a little bit about it, but then went back to playing pool. The next week, we were back at the bar again on a Friday afternoon. It was just our group and the bartender, so she was hanging out with us shooting pool. I told the story about the girl the week before, even though I wasn't sure if I should go with her or not. She collapsed on the floor laughing. I mean, she couldn't stop. There were tears in her eyes when she finally came up for air. It turns out that that girl who was trying to pick me up was actually a guy going through the year of transition before a sex change. Oh shit. What if I had gone home with her? How would I have reacted? As I think back, I am not sure how it would have gone down, but I'm so glad I was the designated driver that night. My intuition and my duty to my friends had kept me from where I could have been in a very embarrassing situation. Another Bronco loss. Dear family, hi. Surprising, a letter. Well, I don't know. I just felt like writing a letter. We had a very long day preparing for this inspection starting tomorrow. I think I'll go to bed after this. I watched the Broncos get beat. Too bad. I was hoping they would win after two Super Bowl losses by beating San Francisco. Should have kept Elway in. I was and am a huge Broncos fan, but it was tough to get the game some days in the Army depending on what we were doing. I did get to see this lousy Super Bowl when the Broncos fell apart again, setting a record for the number of Super Bowl losses and one of the biggest losses ever to San Francisco. But hey, they got there, right? The poison oak tree. Again, we were in the field, and as always, it started with camouflaging the vehicles and digging the foxholes. This time, though, I was out in the field early with the headquarters group from the unit. These were the guys who monitored the radio transmissions and followed the other units through flight. That group had to build a foxhole on one end of our position, and Joe and I had to build one on the other side. Since there were only two of us from the motor pool, it was a ton of work building the hole this time. Usually we had 4 or 5 guys. The other group decided to build their foxhole under a big tree, hoping for some shade, as it was another hot trip. However, they didn't realize it was a poison oak tree until it was too late, and they all got an itchy rash. Not only that, but they had to start over and build another foxhole in a different spot. For me, it was uneventful until day 2 when I suddenly had chest pain. What? I was too young to have a heart attack, and I was in great shape. I headed over to the medic's tent to check it out. Turns out a few of my buddies were in there getting some more ointment for their poison oak. After a full checkout, they told me I had strained my chest muscle and that was the pain. No death on this trip, just an aching pain for a few days from digging that damn foxhole. Bar with pool. One night I went to our usual bar in Monterey alone. Not sure why. I think my friends were busy that night and I was bored in the barracks. I decided to go and play some pool. They had 2 tables, and you would put your dollar and quarters on this spot to show you were next. It was simple. The winner of the previous game got to play again. If you were next, you paid and racked them. I played a lot of pool in between classes at CU, so I could usually do fairly well. Also, my mathematical brain could determine the angles, so I could pull off the bank shots if I tried. This night, I was on fire. There were no other words to describe it. I kept winning. After about the 5th win, I noticed this woman at the bar staring at me. Wow, she was a knockout. She was a blonde, shapely woman who sort of looked a little bit like a young Joan Rivers. She was older than me, though, probably by 10 years or more. I am not sure what she was doing in the bar, as she looked much too classy for this place. Anyway, she noticed me shooting, and I went over and introduced myself. We struck up a conversation, and in between shots, she was asking me questions. She didn't seem too interested in sharing much about herself, however. When the lady selling roses came by, I bought one for her. She was flattered, but then she said we should eat the petals. Okay, this was getting a little weird, but why not? So we ate some of the rose petals and I continued to win at pool. She wanted to hear about me and my army life, which was strange because most women in Monterey didn't want to hear about all that. I shared lots of stories and then would follow up by asking her questions. Her name was Monica, but that was all that I could seem to get out of her. When I asked her other questions, she just smiled a little and then shook her head. As the evening neared to an end, I finally lost on an 8-ball scratch. I put the 8-ball in with a tough bank shot, but put a little too much on it and the cue ball drifted to the other side of the table and fell in the pocket. Oh well, I was out. I sat with Monica a little bit longer. She said she was thinking of going, so I asked her if she could give me a ride back to the base. What the heck? It was cheaper than a taxi. She agreed, but without a military ID, she could only take me to the front of the base. That was fine, though. We got to her car, and it was pure luxury. It looked like a brand new BMW sedan. She drove, and I gave her directions to the gate. I asked her if she would like to get together again sometime or maybe give me her phone number for a call. Again, it was just the small smile and the shaking of her head. And well, that is the way the evening ended. She let me out, and I thanked her and asked her if I would ever see her again, but the answer was a smile and a shake of her head. Maybe she was married and just out for the night. I will never know, but it was sure a fun evening that I still remember to this day. Showering at Samuel's girl's house. There is something strange here. The thing about Private Samuels, my other roommate, is this guy was truly a player. He had women lined up, and he was constantly making plans to meet with one of them or the other. It was funny to hear him tell stories about how he would almost get caught here or there. And this was a time before cell phones, but he had a pager that was constantly beeping. One day, we had just gotten back from the field after a long 10-day trip. I was hot, sweaty, and ready to get all that camo makeup off my face. We got back to the room, and guess what? No water. I guess they were repairing the system or something. Seriously? Shit, I needed to get out of this uniform and in a hot shower. Samuels told me not to worry, he would hook us up. He made a couple of phone calls, and then we were off. We went into married on-post housing to a pretty little yellow house in the middle of the block. It was nicely decorated, and the woman who greeted us at the door was so kind. She showed us to the guest shower, and we all got our turn. The water was wonderful, and that had to be one of the best showers ever after being in the field for 10 days. When I was cleaning up in the sink area and Seton was taking a shower, I started looking around. There were lots of pictures of the girl with a guy, but it wasn't Samuels. What was going on here? It suddenly hit me that Samuels was probably sleeping with this woman and her husband doesn't know about it. Shit! I hope we get out of here fast. After cleaning up the bathroom as best we could and thanking her profusely, we got back in Samuel's car. I had to ask, Samuels, is that your girlfriend? Samuels just smiled and said that she was a friend and that her husband was overseas right now. Okay, I thought I will leave it at that. Night vision. I am a superhero. It was another trip to the field for us with a long list of duties stuck in a foxhole at the front entrance of our encampment. This time we were on a special mission, and it meant we got to use night vision goggles. Putting them on for the first time, I felt like I was playing the old tank game called Battlezone from the 80s. In the game, you are in a tank maneuvering around and shooting all the other tanks. The screen was very basic, all lines, but what made it sort of boring were the solid green color of all the lines. This is what it was like with the night vision goggles. Everything had a pale green tint to it, but I could see everything around me. It was almost pitch black outside, but I could see the trees and the weeds in the distance, and I could see my hands and the M16 I was holding. It was crazy. It was like I was a superhero. Everything around me was like daylight, just in a greenish glow and fuzzy. Just then, I jumped. There was a hand on my shoulder. It was Joe. He was fooling around. He had snuck up behind me as I was so focused on everything I could see. What luck. It was time for my guard duty to be over, but using the night vision goggles was amazing, and I could see how they could change everything in a real fight. The problem comes when you take them off. Suddenly, I was blinded for a little bit. The brightness was gone, and my eyes weren't adjusting back to darkness. It was a struggle getting back to my cot for the 2 hours left until wake-up call. Vulcans, not the Spock kind. We were in headquarters battery of the 262 Air Defense Artillery, but I didn't really know what that meant. In our motor pool, we just saw the radio equipment and the repair equipment. We didn't see anything else. In late fall, we went to the field for another mission. We seemed to go to the field a lot in this duty. This time, it was just Joe and I from the motor pool. I had to be there to fuel all the vehicles, and I needed a passenger for the drive down. Thankfully, this time we weren't really in the field. We were positioned at a field range to watch the live fire for the unit. They had a nice covered picnic area where we could sit or set up our cots for the night. The other batteries in the company were the weapons units composed of the Stinger missile and the Vulcan gun. The Stinger missile is a shoulder-launched missile that can take out air targets with ease. It is a dangerous weapon, which is probably why they didn't live fire them very often. We didn't get to see them fire the weapon this time. On the other hand, we did get to see them fire the Vulcan. The Vulcan gun is basically a Gatling gun mounted to the back of a trailer. The live range was incredible, especially when they used the tracers. These machines could put out about 6,000 rounds in a minute. They sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before, a rapid jarring noise that didn't stop. The other part of our headquarters battery built remote-controlled airplanes made of styrofoam. They would build the model airplanes and then fly them across the field. It was sort of sad to see the hard work of my buddies being lost at the hands of the Vulcan gun as it ripped the model planes apart. Then they would take a break and we would drive out to find the wreckage, bring it back, repair it, and get ready to fly it again. We were on this mission for just a few days, but it was fun to see the other parts of my unit in action. War games. I'm alone. Dear family, well, I missed out on telling you about some of the things we did in the field. Needless to say, I pumped about 2,000 gallons of fuel. Surprising, huh? The first weekend was pretty laid back because it was only a few of us out there. But then on Friday, for the rest of the weekend, the real training began. One day we learned about survival techniques. Then came war games. Actually, it was a recon mission. We had a group of 6, and we were given a point behind enemy lines where one of our men had been shot. Our mission was to find our way in, check on his condition, and make it back to our lines without being captured. For the enemy to get us, they had to be within 20 meters of our position. Well, we went out. I was with most of the motor pool people. Now, the motor pool people are very laid back until missions like this. Then it becomes serious. Well, we made it to our checkpoint and were a quarter of the way back when we were attacked. I saw them in the distance, so we had time to scatter. Everyone went off into the bushes, and I dove under a clump of tight bushes. Some of them were captured. When I felt that I was safe again, I looked around for everyone else, but to no avail. I was alone, with no map or compass, and disoriented after jumping through the bushes. Sounds like a Rambo movie, doesn't it? Well, that is just how I felt. I panicked for a moment and then thought about the survival tactics I'd been taught. I estimated using the sun the direction I had to go. I proceeded to walk, silently of course, to avoid capture. It was a rough walk because the bushes were tightly packed. At times I almost gave up, but in the end I made it back to camp uncaptured. I was covered in leaves, my bootlaces were hanging, but I had made it back on my own. I had even beaten my group back by 15 minutes, so I was feeling proud. Well, as it turned out, the lieutenant who was running the exercise said I had come in last place due to the fact that I had come in without a partner. Shit, I mean, I gave everything I had and was told that I was last because I came in alone but completed the mission? I learned that a private in one of the other groups dropped his protective mask during this exercise. Oh shit, these are very important pieces of equipment. It was like losing a rifle. While we relaxed and enjoyed a cold soda courtesy of our commanding officer, the rest of that group headed back out to try and find the missing mask. The group made it back late that evening empty-handed. God, I was so lucky I didn't lose mine when I dove in the bush. Rappelling the mountain. The next day, dear family, the next day we took rides in a UH-60 Blackhawk. It was a lot of fun. To think I almost paid money in San Francisco when we all got there. Now I got to go for free twice. Also, the day after that, we rappelled off a 100-foot rock. This rock was huge. Here are some pictures. There was this big crevice in the middle. We watched a lieutenant show us an example. Well, he fell in the crevice, and that made me a little nervous. But I go up, and I had fun coming down. Who knows, maybe I'll take up this sport back in Boulder. Well, that was really it for the field exercise. I had a lot of fun, actually. Oh, I almost forgot. Sunday, they brought in some model airplanes that were designed to look and fly like F-14s, and we were supposed to shoot them down. It was difficult because they were moving quite fast, and you had to aim ahead of them so they would actually fly into the bullet. Well, it was down to me and one other guy, and as the plane came in a diving pattern, we both fired and struck the fuel line, and it went down. It was one of only 4 to be shot down out of almost 5,000 bullets fired. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, but I'm happy to be back. D.B. Coopers and shots of tequila. When you have a long weekend and you need to get away from the barracks, it is time to travel. Fort Ord was the perfect place to start from. You could head up to San Jose or San Francisco or drive south to LA. My favorite trips were the ones to San Jose. It was a short trip up, and we usually stopped at the mall for some new dance clothes, then checked into a hotel near the nightclubs and got an early start on dinner and fun. Hey, it was the time for parachute pants, silk shirts, cologne, and MC Hammer. It was nice to go to San Jose because there were very few military guys at the bar, so we didn't stand out as much. We usually started at D.B. Cooper's and sometimes headed over to the Oasis. This was the happening part of San Jose. Long lines to get in and great drinks. Mostly I stuck to my shots of tequila and Coca-Cola, but it is a time to admit the fact that I did smoke a little bit in bars, like everyone else. To this day, I'm not sure why I did. Maybe it was because it helped to keep me from getting a hangover. Maybe it was because everyone else was doing it, but probably it was because it gave me something to do while sitting at the bar on a Saturday night. While I wasn't the most outgoing person at the bars, my friends were, so many times we did have women to talk to, although it is almost impossible to have an intelligent conversation in a bar with all that noise and music. However, I did meet some interesting women on those adventures. One We met one woman who claimed she had a rich husband in the mafia and she just came to the bars to get away and chat with guys. She bought us all drinks that night. Then there were women who just liked to dance. They didn't want to talk to you. Sometimes they didn't even look at your face, just danced. That was cool, I guess. But my journey to find someone special continued.